Welcome to Dweller of the Dark. We are a channel honoring the yellowed and blackened bones of many prominent authors. We will be digging up several obscure, strange, and forgotten authors who influenced many of the great horror, science fiction, and fantasy writers to date. More tales of the horrifying, obscure, strange, and forgotten are climbing out of the tombs. Check out our links below for more information. Subscribe, comment, like, donate, or I'll send the devil of Black Bayou to rip your head off, as we did the like button. Send us ghoulish delights for the Skull and Bones collection. Your pound of writer's flesh will feed our ghouls. For now, children of horror, legion of ghouls. Tonight, we introduce rising horror master Thomas Swafford in his lurking debut. This is his horrifically dark comedy, Rubbed the Wrong Way. Put some thought into your wish. First published in 2022 for his collection, Writing on a Deadline. This twisted tale may make you keep the genie in the lamp. Enjoy. Rubbed the Wrong Way. Put some thought into your wish, by Thomas Swafford. Marjorie looked over the items in the curio shop for something that met her agenda. She was 54 and recently widowed. Dan, her late husband, had been introduced to her by some friends when she was 29. He was not overly handsome, but a nice, easygoing man and likable. He had impressed her parents a great deal, however. Dan was an accountant and, along with several friends, partners, started their own firm that had managed to pull in some major clients. It hadn't been the most passionate marriage, but it was a practical one. His business was a huge success, and so she didn't have to work. Instead, she was the homemaker who allowed him to come to a well-kept house and a good meal. Marjorie could also indulge in her love for art and beautiful things. It also allowed her to avoid the less pleasant things in the world. Despite the fact her parents would have liked grandchildren from her, she and Dan really didn't want any. His priority was his business, and she would rather paint and sketch than change diapers or help with schoolwork. Besides, her siblings provided her parents with grandchildren. One day, Marjorie was at home and heard a knock on the door. It was her sister, Kim, and her husband, Mike. "What are you doing here?" Marjorie asked, a bit surprised. "We need to talk," Kim told her. Sitting down, they told her that Dan's work had called them. His secretary had gone into his office to ask him a question and found him lying on the floor unconscious. One of his partners started CPR and EMTs were called. Despite everyone's best efforts, Dan didn't make it. Evidently, he had suffered a major heart attack. One of his partners had met Kim and called her and explained the situation. "Kim, Marjorie needs to know. I could call or go over there or see if one of the police could, but I think this is something best handled by the family. I hate to put it off on you, but I think you need to tell her or have another family member do it." Marjorie was shocked by it all, but not devastated. It was a disruption of her very orderly existence more than anything. The marriage was more of a matter of two people finding benefit in it than it was two people who loved each other. Within a month, Dan's partners made a bid to Marjorie to buy out her husband's stock in the company, which was fine with her. A cousin of hers, who was a business lawyer, looked over everything and told her, "This is a very good offer. Completely fair. Actually, I would take it as is." She took the buyout offer, and along with life insurance Dan had, Marjorie was at 54 set for life. Now, without having to worry about income, Marjorie decided to dedicate herself to beauty. One of her favorite things to do was to buy old things and restore them. On the back part of the house, she had built a workplace that was well ventilated, where she restored things she found at shops, yard sales, and flea markets. Today, as she looked through the curio shop, Marjorie came across a brass oil lamp. It was badly in need of cleaning, but that was fine. The fun was in working on things and making them beautiful. Buying it, she headed home and immediately began to clean it. "This really needs some shining," she said to herself. Spraying solvent over her acquisition, she turned on the exhaust fan and was going to let it set for a few minutes. Then she put on some gloves and began to try to scrub it. After about 30 seconds, the lamp began to shake in her hands. Quickly, she set it on the work table, but it continued to move by its own volition. Then suddenly, colored smoke began to boil out of the brass object. Screaming, Marjorie fled from the room into the house, fearing that it would explode. She was about to call the police and the fire department when she realized that the room was now quiet. Cautiously peering around the door, she looked inside the workroom. It was filled with red and blue smoke, but the exhaust fan was quickly pulling it out. There, standing by the table, was a man. He had a complexion and features that hinted of a Middle Eastern heritage and appeared to be early to middle 20s. His attire was a very odd combination. On his feet were what started out like some of those high-dollar basketball shoes the kids were wearing, but the toes came to a point that curved back toward the wearer. His pants were denim, but large and baggy, and they came down to almost his hips and exposed a generous portion of boxer shorts. On his head, he wore a turban that had a baseball cap turned backwards underneath. He also wore a colorful vest over a t-shirt for some sports team. The mismatched attire gave the appearance of Alibaba and the 40 Rappers. "Who summons me?" bellowed the stranger, his arms crossed across his chest. After about a minute of no response, he dropped his arms and looked around. "Hello? Anyone here? Yo?" At this point, this mysterious visitor didn't seem so threatening. Marjorie stepped out from behind the door. Upon seeing her, the man crossed his arms back across his chest, as if this was his official meet and greet position. "Are you the one who robbed the lamp?" he asked. Marjorie timidly nodded and asked, "Are you a genie?" "Well, duh. I mean, yes. I am the genie of the lamp," he replied, almost rolling his eyes. His response was like the one she got when asking her nieces and nephews a question that they obviously thought the answer apparent. She wasn't the most informed about modern pop culture. "How long have you been in that lamp?" Marjorie asked. "Actually, I don't stay in there," he told her. "It's a portal that I can access. Due to budget cutbacks, everyone's having to pull more responsibilities. You wouldn't believe how many lamps I have to cover. I can't even turn around when they give me some more. If the job market wasn't so bad, I'd quit a long time ago." He turned around and saw the lamp and asked, "Whoa, is that the lamp you erupt? Yes, she told him. I've never seen one that old and still in service. Lady, you are lucky, he exclaimed with a look of wonder. Another few weeks and our server would have been updated and it would have no longer supported that model. He took a cell phone out of his pocket and took a picture of the lamp. I'm going to have to get a shot of that one. No one will believe that one was still in service. What's your name? Marjorie asked. My real name is Ali. Real original, huh? But I prefer to go by my street name, the notorious A.L.I., he said, spelling out his name, and then he added, I am here to grant your single wish. I thought I was supposed to get 3, Marjorie replied. Not these days, lady. Everything is getting cut back. I just got told that they are doubling the amount of time I have to put in to get a week of vacation. On top of that, they are really cutting back how much they put into our retirement fund. I tell you, things are rough all over. My uncle retired, and he's having to be an Uber driver with his flying carpet to make ends meet. All these revelations shocked her. The magical life didn't sound so magical at all. Marjorie thought. What do I want? Do I have to tell you right now? Can I have some time to think about it? Yes, ma'am. You have 48 hours to inform us of your decision. He held out his palm, and suddenly a small gong appeared in it. Please, just tap this gong when you have decided. Please pay attention to the time so the offer doesn't lapse. With that, he disappeared, and when she looked, the lamp had vanished too. This rather irritated her, because she had paid for it and was looking forward to restoring it. They could at least let me keep the lamp, she thought. Marjorie began to think about her wish. She thought about eternal life, but thought about a Twilight Zone episode that dealt with that. It probably wasn't as great as that. She considered being the greatest painter or artist of all time. But she thought it over and decided then everyone would be jealous and hate her. The art world was full of that. She had belonged to several artist associations and always regretting joining. In reality, the feeling from her fellow artists was mutual. Marjorie liked to give advice, but not take it or even hear it. Her nickname with the others was the Peach, referring to her thin-skinned nature. Whenever she left the group, the overall feeling was relief. Constant whining or outrage annoyed everyone. Remembering she needed some groceries, Marjorie got her purse and keys and headed to the store. While stopping for a traffic light, a car pulled up beside her. The driver had his stereo turned up, and she didn't care for the music. Getting to the store, she was getting out of her car. Suddenly, she heard barking and jumped. A car next to her had a small dog inside, and the windows were down about 3 inches. The dog was being territorial and was barking non-stop. She never liked dogs to start with because they could be so loud and aggressive. The owners were often like the parents of unruly children who ignored their behavior and thought it was funny. Inside, things were bad as well. People would stop in the middle of the aisle and block her. The cashier acted annoyed when it took her a minute to find her debit card. Marjorie then went by an office supply business to send a fax to her lawyer. A young man at the counter was overly friendly to some of the customers and workers and talked way too much. Then he broke into gospel music, and the lady told him He had a lovely voice, and he started talking to her way too loud, while Marjorie stood and waited. Finally, another employee saw her waiting and that she seemed irritated and came over and helped her. She couldn't escape the store and the unpleasant situation fast enough. She pulled into her driveway and got out just in time to hear her neighbors screaming at her kids in that shrill voice that drove her insane. That night, it suddenly hit her. She knew what she would wish for that would make her happy. I want it where no one that bothers me or irritates me is in my world. She didn't want them dead or on Mars, just that they couldn't see, be aware of, or affect her, and vice versa. She would be able to live her life totally free of those that in any way interrupted her serenity. The next morning, she used the small gong he gave her. Despite its small size, when she struck it, the resulting thunderous sound almost made her wet herself. Ali appeared and said, "So you have decided upon your wish?" "Yes," she told him enthusiastically. Then she proceeded to explain what she wanted. "Okay, one moment," he said, clapped his hands, and a stand with a small laptop appeared. "I have to write this up to submit to the fulfillment department." For about the next 45 minutes, he typed and revised as they went over the wish description. At one point, she thought it was an accurate statement for her desire, and Ali thought it left nothing ambiguous for someone down the line to complain about. "I tell you, they will raise Cain about the dumbest stuff. I think they go through work orders just hoping to find some reason to delay or bitch about it. The supervisor over the department just lets them." Once again, he clapped his hands, and a printer appeared. He hit the Control and P buttons on the keyboard, and the printer began spitting out papers. He put them on a clipboard that appeared and handed her a pen. "I need you to sign some papers." Marjorie looked at him perplexed. "Why? And for what?" Ali explained, smiling, while thrusting the clipboard and pen again into her hand. "This first one is your wish description. Please go over it thoroughly. By signing this, you are agreeing that this is an accurate description of your wish. Also, it releases us from responsibility that in any way we got your order wrong." "What about these orders?" she continued inquiring, rubbing her temples perplexed. "Those are releases saying that neither I or anyone associated with my company are in any way responsible for the consequences of your wish, and you waive the right to take legal actions against us due to the results or repercussions caused by your wish." Ali's ever-growing smile made Marjorie hesitant. Protesting, she groaned. "Oh, I didn't know I'd have to be signing so many contracts." Ali, chiding, tried putting her concerns at ease. "Lady, we have to do it this way now. Everybody is so happy and wants to blame everyone else for their mistakes. One guy asked for all the Batmobiles. First, he got banged up driving one of them and totaled the car. He forgot to get insurance and didn't have the money to replace it. He had to mortgage his house over the cost of insurance, upkeep, and storage. He actually lost everything and had to declare bankruptcy and was homeless. Then he had a heart attack from all the stress. He sued us for all his problems from getting the vehicles. He should have thought beyond his nose. I mean, he was in his 50s and just wanted to push the blame on someone else. Whatever you do has consequences." Marjorie thought about calling a cousin of hers to look over these contracts first, but thought about how that conversation would go.
Hello, Jerry. This is Marjorie. I need you to look over some legal papers for me. What are they? Well, I bought an old oil lamp and was cleaning it up, and a genie appeared.
No, this isn't a joke. It really happened.
What?
No, I'm not on drugs. Okay, that was years ago when I was in college. Hello? Hello? Sign your name here, or your initials here and here, Ali told her. After having to sign about 15 forms, he told her she was finished. Thank you. I will turn these order forms over to customer service, and unless there's a problem, your wish should be processed and completed in 24 to 48 hours. It's been my pleasure to serve you. Here's another gong. You are entitled to one post-wish fulfillment consultation in case you have any questions. Have a nice day. And with that, Ali and all the paperwork disappeared. Marjorie stood there in her front room with the gong, trying to sort it all out. She even wondered if it was a dream and went on about her day. It was afternoon the next day, and Marjorie had gone to her mailbox when her neighbor began screaming something to her husband. It didn't ever seem to occur to the woman to actually just get closer to him, or that the rest of the neighborhood didn't care to suffer listening to her shrill voice. Marjorie was walking back in quickly to escape the audio nightmare when suddenly the woman's voice just vanished in mid-screech. Turning to see where the woman was mere seconds ago, there was no one there. It had worked. Marjorie's wish had come true. A smile appeared on her face as she happily walked back into her house. Realizing she had a package to send her sister, Marjorie got it and drove to the post office. Along the way, she was surprised at how little traffic was on the road. As she drove, she hoped that it wasn't busy at the post office. The man that usually handled the counter was slow and hard of hearing. At times, she had to wait as he worked his way through the customers at an infuriating snail's pace. Then he would constantly ask her to repeat what she said because he refused to get a hearing aid. Pulling into the parking lot, Marjorie was glad to see it was empty. If her luck held out, maybe the old man wasn't working the front counter today. Walking in with her package, she looked for someone to wait on her. However, no one was around. She stood there for a few minutes and then rang the bell and called out, "Hello? Can someone help me?" But no one came. Neither did she hear anyone in the back. After about 5 minutes, she returned to her car. The situation was strange and rather disturbing, and she considered calling the police. If traffic was light going to the post office, it was almost non-existent on the way home, then disappeared completely. Fear began to fill her, and she decided to go into town. Certainly, there had to be people there. It was like something out of an apocalyptic movie. The only cars to be seen were parked. The streets were completely empty. Not a person was in sight. "Has there been a disaster?" she said out loud. Turning on the radio to check for a special news report, there was nothing but silence. Panic started to rise inside her. It was at this point she remembered the gong Ali had given her and recalled he had said Marjorie had a post-wish consultation. Pulling off the road despite the fact there was no traffic anywhere, she pulled it out of her purse and rang it. She jumped as the loud sound shattered the eerie silence that surrounded her. Out of nowhere appeared Ali. "Yes, Mom. I was notified that your wish went into effect approximately 40 minutes ago. It was, from what I was told, a rather large one to fulfill, so it took a bit of time to be totaled. I hope, however, everything is met with your satisfaction."
All this is because of my wish?
Marjorie sputtered.
Everyone is gone. It's like I am the only person on Earth.
Ali shrugged his shoulders. "You asked that basically everyone that got on your nerves would be removed from your plane of existence, that they couldn't affect you or you them. It looks like that was pretty much anyone." Marjorie didn't know what to say. She stood there in shock. "Lady, let me tell you something off the clock, sorta say," Ali began. "You need to remember that it's not all about you." Marjorie's head jerked back and she looked at Ali. The rebuke caught her off guard. He told her, "You talk about people annoying you? Did you ever think that you might get on other people's nerves? I've gotten pretty good at reading people, and I can tell you, you're the type who is so wrapped up and living in your own world that you have no concept of how you rub other people. It's not that you set out to do it, but you do and you're clueless about it. Hey, I love my parents, but there's times they drive me batshit. But I realize that I do the same to them. That's life, lady. Yeah, there's times that you really need to drop some people, but you need to think about what you are contributing to the situation. Maybe you aren't the only one that is getting annoyed." As angry as she was about the remark, on some level she knew he was right. Several people had told her so. How many friends had cut ties with her?
But now I'm all alone.
I'd say that has been happening to some extent for a while. You just didn't catch on to it, replied Ali, or always thought it was their fault.
What am I supposed to do now?
She wailed, lamenting her situation. Ali clapped his hands together. Suddenly he appeared in one of those video games, just like the ones Marjorie had seen some of her nephews playing. The same games that were also advertised on television.
This is what I like to do in my spare time. It's Genie Wars 6, and it's got the most ass-kicking sound and graphics. I get into this, and it takes my mind off whatever is aggravating me. My job, my parents, my girlfriend, and customers.
Marjorie looked at the video game and gave a look of disgust.
I hate violent things like war. That's why I didn't like history in school. It seemed all about this war or that war.
Ali just cut his eyes at her and clapped his hands. The video game disappeared. He clapped again, and a deck of playing cards appeared in his hand, and he handed them to her. There's a game called Solitaire. You might try it. Maybe it won't offend you. This concludes your post-wish fulfillment consultation. Thank you, and have a nice day. And with that, Ali disappeared. Marjorie stood in the middle of the silent street and looked around the deserted city. A feeling of loneliness swept over her like a wave. Looking down at the cards in her hand, she got a feeling that she was going to be playing a lot of solitaire. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.